You're listening to Discovering You Again Radio with Susan Axelrod. Women facing down the second half of life. Who are you putting first? Have you reached an age where you've seen it all, but still know there's more? Is life part 2 sneaking up on you? Look inside yourself and buckle up. We're just getting started. Don't settle for being comfortable in your skin. Break free and be radiant, inspired, confident, and abundant. These are your years. Take them and stop apologizing. Attack the second half of life with a purpose. Discovering You Again Radio with Susan Axelrod starts now.
Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to Discovering You Again Radio with Susan Axelrod. I am here today with Dr. Pat. Hi, Dr. Pat. How are you today?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm okay. I got to tell you, I've got something big on my mind today, Dr. Pat, and I can't wait to talk about it with you. I want to get right into it. You know, when I first told you, Dr. Pat, about my thesis body of work, which is to help women in midlife live out the second half of life in strength and on purpose, you got on my train immediately, letting me know that you felt I was on to something big. I want to thank you for this and let you know that without that vote of confidence, I would not have taken the leap into this radio show. So I really want to say thank you for that.
Yeah, sometimes that's all it takes, right?
It
just
really
takes some level of encouragement or something, you know. It's hard to say what it is for each person, but I'll tell you what doesn't help is when people don't understand our dream and so therefore don't support it. But, you know, we have to support each other.
We do have to support each other. And it is the basis of my work in confidence as a confidence coach. This is something that people tell me all the time. I feel your confidence in me, and therefore I feel more confident myself. You know, when I got started, you worked with me to coach me, to help me become a radio show host. And you told me to think about linking my material to current research or studies or articles. So recently, when I saw a Harvard Business Review article and a mass of other articles about a big announcement from Melinda Gates, I paid attention. Dr. Pat, on September 28th, Melinda Gates announced that she is going to invest, wait for it, $1 billion over the next 10 years in gender equality. When I started reading about this, I barely had to continue reading before my intuition kicked in. My intuition started buzzing, and it really, truly hasn't stopped. I really knew immediately that our listeners, women in their second half, would be playing a pivotal role in her work. We have the brain, the brawn, the time, the talent, and often resources to make things happen. Melinda Gates should be looking to us to join her army, Dr. Pat. What do you think?
I think so. I think that, you know, part of this is I'd love to get some backstory on it to really see what the motivation was. I mean, I think the article, if you look at it, talks about, something that's obvious to the world, this gap. But the question really is, you know, what is the gap about? So, for example, is the gap having to do with the inability for women to get the funding that they need to start a business at a reasonable rate? And then is it also about our ability to get funding to expand without paying a ridiculous amount? And I think that, you know, besides money, the question really is, what are going to be the skills part of this to help women learn some skills that perhaps they would not otherwise learn? And I'm just wondering a bit more about that, because gender equality is very broad. You know, I was watching a conversation last night on CNN with the LGBTQ community, and And I was watching the candidates for president answer questions from the audience.
Mhm.
And at one point, and I don't remember who it was, maybe it was Beto O'Rourke, where out of the crowd came a bold and also courageous um, Black transgender woman and literally took the mic and talked about a level of inequality that transcends even the tip of what we're talking about today. And what I loved about that is one, how they handled it, but the woman who she took the mic from, who was
Mhm.
getting ready to ask a question, took a minute and acknowledged her. And it was quite a scene. It wasn't the kind of scene that most of the time when we see something like that, it wasn't the kind of scene where one person says to the other, thank you for sharing that. Even, you know, not even a comment about taking the mic. Because you see, this is a community that understands that gender equality doesn't even exist. And so I am curious about what she means with this. And I think there's more to be revealed. However, I hope she starts a trend and big corporations come on, right? And 1 billion in 10 years turns to 1 billion a year.
A year.
That's my goal.
I couldn't
1
agree.
billion a year, I think she'll make progress,
1
because by the
billion a
time
year.
10 years comes, 1 billion is not going to be worth 1 billion. So I'd like to see everybody chip in, because it's going to take 1 billion a year. What do you think?
I agree. She does refer to this in some of the articles. She says
Yes.
this is not enough money, but it's a start.
Yep.
Dr. Pat, you referred to skills and you referred to engagement and how we engage with different people. This is part of my thesis today. If Melinda Gates can be believed, can we believe her that she is going to make this investment and drill, drill, drill in the way that you're talking about it? Then I say that we, the people, women in midlife, we are ready and we have those skills to share. We have wisdom, we have, time, we have experience, we have expertise that can be called on. Her goal is clear. Her goal, her words, to expand women's power and influence in society. I'd like to read for a moment directly from that Harvard Business Review article, which is, her words on what her goal is. Here it is. I think of power and influence as the ability to make decisions, control resources, and shape perspectives. It is something women exercise in their homes, in their workplaces, and in their communities. I recognize that, quote, power and influence are not words we have historically associated with women, nor are they words that all women associate with themselves. I also acknowledge that because of my family's wealth, I have access to certain kinds of power and influence that very few people do. Still, I use these words, imperfect and imprecise though they are, because they are the best way I know to describe what men in this country, in particular white men, have long had that women have not. So, Dr. Pat, to your point, I think she's at least trying to say, I realize this is somewhat imperfect.
And I'll tell you what, I would disagree with her about the two words of power and influence being imperfect. Here's why I disagree. It is very difficult to have a level of equality if we are not on the same playing field, right?
Right.
I'm struck by the young woman, the first young woman to break through football, right? Now, you know what I mean. I mean, literally, she's a football player,
Mm,
all right? And and football player, scholarship to college, right?
right.
So I think about her. And if you would have told her the words power and influence were imperfect, she'd probably scratch her head. Why? Because in order for her to achieve, you have to fully embrace the language of our time, which is perfect in itself. And here's why: that is the game that is being played, power and influence. And so, if it is imperfect in its essence, and we try to replace those with something we think is more perfect, then how are we going to achieve? Because we're not playing in the same game. I mean, I want to see women walk around saying, I am a woman of power. I am a woman of influence. I am a woman of confidence. I am a woman of success. I am a woman that can achieve anything. And I am absolutely perfect in my power and my influence in what I do in the world. That's what I want to see. And as a matter of fact, I am going to get those t-shirts made.
Okay, well, I am going to wear one as a confidence coach, Dr. Pat. This is absolutely what I talk about and what I teach. And I can tell you, we have a long way to go before we, women in our cohort, in this, what I call the second half of life, can calmly, confidently, and firmly make those power statements. That is the basis of my work. That is what I am talking about today. And I believe that while the millennials are capable, I'm not saying they're not capable, they are at a life stage where they are building lives, they are building careers, they are building partnerships in life and in business. And we are the ones who are here, are available. And my entire intention with this radio show today is to get our listeners to take on these power statements that you are saying today. Go.
You've got to do it. Listen to this. No, we'll do it when we come back. But I want to share a story with you. And I want to share a story that really talks to exactly what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that the work that you do helps women to be in action.
Yes,
You don't,
yes.
you're not doing this where you sitting across from a coaching client say, oh, yeah, I think you're right. No, you're like, what do we need to do to get you in the game?
Yes.
What do we need to do to get you at the next level of revenue for your company? What do you need to do in order to take your dream now in the second, third, or fourth half of your life? Because guess what's happening with this? It used to be we were in the half point of life. No, now we're not. Now the half point now has a half, right? Now that half then had another half. Then
Yes.
that had another half. When I think it was Jane Fonda, I have a picture of myself with Jane Fonda a bunch of years ago. When Jane Fonda came out and said something like, oh, 80 is the new 40. Yes, it is. And it has been for men. So you are on it. And
I am on it.
We need to go for this.
Yeah, we need to go for this. When we come back, we will be talking about our turn now, how to get healthy, get fit, get whole, get smarter, think, and activate into our purposeful self. So stay tuned. Please join us after the break. We are back. Welcome back to Discovering You Again Radio with Susan Axelrod and with Dr. Pat Basile. We are happy to be here today talking about a topic that is important. Dare I say, I believe it is actually profound. When someone like Melinda Gates says that she is willing to invest $1 billion in a topic like gender equality, I think we should pay attention. Now, Dr. Pat says $1 billion is not enough over 10 years. We want to see $1 billion a year. I couldn't agree more, but right now, to get started, if Melinda Gates is true to her word, if she has created a structure, a format for us to be able to follow on this very important topic, then we can get started with where she's at. So, Dr. Pat, we were just talking before break about how this is the time for in the second half of life for women to activate. That's what you were saying in my confidence coaching. I had to laugh when you said to me, when you talk to your clients, you're not just listening to them. I laughed out loud because no, I really am kicking them in the butt. I am helping them to get confident, to shore up their ability to activate, to engage, and then to lead. Now, I want to read one more piece from the Harvard Business Review article about Melinda Gates's
Yeah.
announcement, if I may, and then we can continue our conversation. Here we go, directly from the article. Quote, "Women are sharing their stories, marching, walking out, running for office, and winning elections in record numbers. The media is amplifying their voices and asking hard questions of the institutions that continue to lock women out." End quote. When I read that, Dr. Pat, I realized that I actually have a media voice right here on Transformation Talk Radio Network, and I decided to use my voice today. And what I want to say first is thank you for giving me this voice and creating this network, and really for discussing this important topic with me. I would like to ask you to speak a little bit to how Transformation Talk Radio Network does give voice and how we can motivate and inspire others.
Well, I think we have to go to exactly what Melinda Gates has said. And I just want to be really clear about my position on what Melinda Gates has done. Having lived in the Pacific Northwest for almost 3 decades, I will tell you that nothing comes close to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the work that they've done for education. Now, what I'm hoping happens with Melinda Gates and her initiative is I hope that the rest of the population of power and influence look at what she's doing and match her. And, for me, this is more my style than Melinda Gates' style. So I just want to be very clear. My style is more, okay, I'm putting up $1 billion over 10 years. Who out there would match me? See, that's more my style. And I'm hoping that by her coming out, that these 15 minutes that we're talking about this turns to be an everyday conversation. And I think it will be. But she said it best when she pinpointed the fact that in 2018, there were more men named James running Fortune 500 companies than there were women, period.
Oh my God.
And she goes on to say, women are 51% of the population, but only hold 24% of the seats in Congress. So my sense is that some of her energy will go towards women in government. My sense is, I don't have any information on that.
Right.
But, here is what I love about this is that we had the Me Too initiative and it started out strong and then it didn't finish. And it didn't finish because I'm hoping it's still ongoing. And what I mean by it didn't finish, there was nowhere for people to go once they joined the movement to either get legal help, financial help. And so I don't think as women we suffer from a voice. But let me tell you about Transformation Talk Radio. It didn't start that as a network. It started because I had a mission 15 years ago, and I said yes to do a 1-hour show on the internet in 2003. And that was insanity in itself. But here's what I believed. I believed women were out there as an audience. Yes. And yet Arbitron at the time, all of the big media companies said women had left talk radio, and they did. They left by the tens and of millions. So here's where we are today. Whether you call me a pioneer in digital media or whatever that is, here's where we are. The latest statistic says that moms over 30, just one statistic for women, moms over 30 have the market on smartphone usage. They are plugged in close to 80 times a day. They pretty much do everything on this thing we call digital media. Shop, where's my child, you name it. How do I get educated? What do we do here? Moms, that is a statistic in the United States. So here's the thing. I didn't operate like a regular corporate network. And by the way, most media is owned by 1.5 companies. So let's just be really clear about that. We don't
Right.
have all these networks. That
Right.
is
Not
not,
anymore.
no,
Right.
about
That's
one and
gone.
a half.
Right.
To be honest, maybe two. Let's see. All right, two. They run everything.
Hmm.
They tell you who is going to be on your news channels. They determine who's going to say what. Even Sirius Satellite, XM Satellite with Sirius XM, they have at one point in time they were going to be the network of the average person with the voice. No, now in order to get a show on there, you either have to pay a gazillion dollars or be Jennifer Aniston.
Right.
So this is the network for the people. This is the network for the people. And it's the first place based on what you all tell me, because I don't compare us to the market. I'm so focused. Jessica and I are so focused on what we're doing here. I couldn't tell you what other networks are doing. You guys tell us,
I
right?
just want to interject, Dr. Pat, that, I can verify, we as a radio show host, we do write our own content. I have
Yes.
pages here, I have notes, and you've never once sort of monitored or censored anything that I've done.
No.
And really, you've given me voice to be able to have this direct conversation with Melinda Gates if she's out there and somebody can get me directly to her, because I really want to know the truth behind this too. I want to know, if she's willing to invest in this army that I believe is should be or could be ready and waiting for her. And so
I agree with you. I mean, we're going to be launching a crowdfunding initiative because we've been asked to speed up what we're doing. More than that, we have on the table a proprietary software that is going to connect people in the world with the people that can help them.
mm,
And so all of this is, yeah, I got to tell you something. This is really fascinating to me. Jessica and I ended up on October 1st in LA, last minute, very unexpectedly, um, in support of a campaign that a woman that I worked with about 8 years ago put together, and it's called Love Notes, and it's called Love Notes World, and you can go find it on lovenotes.world. And she said to me, "You got to be part of this event, Pat." And I said, "Wow." And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh my God, October, we're moving into space. We're doing." She says, "You got to come down here to LA and be part of a music video with John Legend and a bunch of other celebrity people."
mm.
And I thought, "Really? No, really." I'm like, "Me? Are you kidding?" I mean, people don't even know that I own Transformation Talk Network because, and my head is down. And so we were going to do some interviews. I grabbed Jessica. So we go down to LA. We had to dress in white. Very hard to find white here in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know if Kat's got any pictures she can put up, but here we go. And here's what I'm talking about when you talk about power and influence. And here is exactly what Melinda Gates is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I have to tell this story, not today, but sometime, of what that event was like. There were people that are top celebrities. All of us came together. There were people from every walk of life. There was John Legend and his nephew who wrote the song. And I got to tell you what, on that day, with no real media around, right? On that day, we were just all connected as humans.
Mm.
We were all connected as humans. I mean, Alfred Woodard, had a pendulum, and I was talking to her about, but we were just people.
Mm.
You see, that's when power and influence become the exact thing for everybody, regardless
Well,
of who you
you,
are.
you say you were just people, but you're talking about these names who are, like celebrities. But what I want to make the connection here for our listeners today is Transformation Talk Radio, my voice today, our voices together, you and I, we are the translators
Yeah.
to the people who don't get to kind of move in those celebrity circles. So you are like, I guess I might say, a conduit, if I might. I guess that's the way I think of it, is that being in that that kind of grouping there, which kind of, I wouldn't really be able to necessarily be in, but here you are with them, and you come over to Transformation Talk Radio, and then we're here, all of the radio show hosts, on Transformation Talk Radio, and we speak to our people. And this is the trajectory that I am really talking about, that any person can have your
Yes.
voice heard.
Yes. And that's my point. 15 years ago when I dialed this, I was at
Mm,
the worst point in my life. I was depressed. I was supposed to go get a job, a corporate job. I couldn't do it. And I dialed the wrong phone number and I never looked back. And when Transformation Talk Radio started, it didn't start because I had nothing better to do. It started because I was helping a guy start his network, and he disappears and writes a bad check for $2,200. And I end up, the station owner calls me and says, you're responsible. You have to start a network. And so, this is how do women learn to say yes? See, this
mm.
is really, I think, part of power and influence here, Susan. How can we help women to take that leap and say yes?
Okay, so let me answer that question. One way is to help them get confident. And one of my calls to action today, thank you, you didn't know this, but thank you for leading me in directly into this, is through self-care. Dr. Pat, I I am developing a thesis that self-care is an absolute underlying basis foundation for confidence. And as women, we start early on in our lives looking away or denying our own self-care in our giving. Now, my followers know that I talk about this a lot, how we give, we deplete inside, and that we don't have any repletion, repleting, filling our souls back up. And so, one of the ways we get people to say, yes, Dr. Pat, is to take a breath and go in, focus on themselves, find their own self care. I have a free webinar that I am offering on this topic next week. The information can be found at the announcement bar on my website. Whatwillyourlegacybe.com. Right at the top, and go right to my homepage. Right at the top is an announcement bar. You can click there. It will go to the webinar registration, and I am going to be talking about this topic, Dr. Pat, of self-care, which I believe is one of the ways that we get to your point, helping women say, yes, I will, I can, and I will lead.
I think what you're doing is you're taking the lead from Melinda Gates of what she's talking about. I think what she's doing is she's inspiring all of us to do something, right? And she's no different than you and I, Susan. When she outlined, right, what keeps her up at night,
Yeah.
and when she talked about that in the article, right, and imagine waking up to find the country has moved on, when she talks about that in that way, and the things that stir within her, and is so plugged in to the inequality that we face, that's when you say no mas, and you stand up and you do something. Now we may not have $1 billion, but that doesn't mean that we cannot do something, that we can't help people.
Yes.
Look at it, simple things. Let's just be clear. Jessica comes down to LA with me. Now, how do we do this? How do we treat each other? If we really believe in equality, how do we treat people? So, is it that you go to an event and you start to look at differences between who you are as the company owner and somebody that is so loyal to the company, has worked with you? Do you look at them as less than? No. You say, come on, you need to be part of this. You need to get in the video. You need to be part of what's going on here and do the things you do. You know, you don't you see, this is a simple thing, but it's not. It's not. The minute we can step into a forum and be who we are and let others be who we are, and I'm talking about human beings,
Yeah.
talking about the position you hold, that's when we can learn what it feels like to be on the other side. And the bottom line to this, Susan, is unless you have been on the other side, unless you have been at that place where you know what it's like to be under the thumb of inequality,
Mm,
it's hard. It's hard. It's very hard to have a conversation about it. You
mm,
know, unless you've been that person where every meeting your boss tells a dirty joke
mm.
and you're afraid to say anything. Or perhaps you're up for a job and you don't get it because your boss says, wait a minute, you're single, and he's not, he's got a family. Yeah, this is the reality.
It
This is
is.
not makeup. And so, how would you think, and what would you think is important for us to have a voice, to build a voice? What would you say you're looking for that to happen?
I, I people, uh, the listeners cannot see the huge smile on my face when you are talking about how you treat somebody on your team with equality, and then the disgust look on my face when you talked about how some people do get treated with such inequality. I just wanted to say that we are streaming live on Facebook. Some people can see us, but our listeners cannot know the range, the chaotic range of emotions that are going through me as we discuss this topic. I am taking a page from Melinda Gates. I do not have that $1 billion, but I do have what I have, Dr. Pat. As I said earlier, I realized I have this radio show. What I want to say, per the question you just asked me, is that every single person has something. And that is the work. That's where I talk about the confidence zone and really helping and encouraging people to go in, find your breath, find that space. I call it the 8-year-old power girl space. You remember the 8-year-old power girl, hands on the hips, I can do anything, I'm Supergirl. And then over time we recede from that, and then we go actually even lower than that, and then we hit this time and we lose that voice, we lose the idea that we actually could do something. So right here and now, I want to encourage people to first give thought, listen to this entire radio show over again. Take out a pen and paper and write down your thoughts. And just imagine I can do something. I mean, honestly, Dr. Pat, I really am just a regular person. I just got this opportunity from you guys at Transformation Talk radio show, and I said yes to that. That's what I did. And here we are
Yeah.
today talking.
Yeah. Well,
And
Susan, if you read sort of the last words in what Melinda Gates says, and I think it's important to really read it, and
mhm,
I love it because she expresses exactly the way we are right now about this. She says we are right to be outraged, but we are
mm,
also right to be optimistic. And see, that's always been a journey for me. When people listen to me talk about something I'm passionate about or an inequality, the comment that is made is, how can you be that way? How can you say those things and still be optimistic? Well, we can. You see, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Believe it or
exactly.
not, the multitasking ability of women is by far unprecedented. Just look all over the world, right? But she also says that we don't have to take the glacial pace of change.
Mm,
That's why we're building the technology we're building, because finally our vision now has had technology catch up that we can actually build what we dream about. But this is like for you and me to say to everybody listening, find one small thing.
mm,
See, Melinda Gates says she knows this is a fraction of the money, but it is something. And I want to acknowledge that
yeah.
because you and I are talking about it. Why? We wouldn't be talking about this. And maybe somebody who's listening is going to talk about it to somebody else. And then maybe they're going to talk about it to somebody else. That's how we can support each other.
I want to focus on the word network in Transformation Talk Radio Network. You know, your story, telling the story of how you were one person and somebody else wrote a bad check and somebody says to you, you have to develop a radio station. But what happened was you turned it into a network. And now there's, I don't know how many radio show hosts who all come together to create a network. Now, Dr.
Yeah,
Pat, I want to talk about something
sure,
really important here. This is
sure.
really important vis-a-vis this conversation. What is it? It's divide. It's division. It is. I did. This wasn't in my notes, but I'm going here, Dr. Pat. It is the division of what's happening in our country today. So even as I sit here in acute awareness, like I'm literally, my intuition is buzzing as I'm listening and talking, and I have no doubt that it's possible that I could have this, my own conversation about this with Melinda Gates. I think that we need to acknowledge the divide in our country. I don't want to go off into a discussion about politics here, Dr. Pat.
Hmm.
I want to talk about what is it called? The politics of division, maybe, or something like
Yes.
that. And I
Yeah.
want to encourage people to breathe and open and figure out how we can just try to break through the division that is, consuming our country. And me too, Dr. Pat. I got to be honest, I am subject to it. Don't get me wrong. I am human and I am smart. So I feel the divide. I feel the division. I feel the divisiveness. And in this conversation today, Dr. Pat, I want to encourage our listeners and anyone by extension who hears this to try to figure out how to break through. Do you know what I mean, Dr. Pat?
Well, I think that we have to acknowledge what's happening. And I'll say it again in Melinda Gates's words, this is where we are. We are right to be outraged, but
Mm,
we're also right to be optimistic. And I think that's really what we're talking about. We are right to be outraged and we
mm,
are right to be optimistic. See,
mm,
because if you're outraged and optimistic together, then the solution you provide is one of possibilities and not making somebody wrong, right?
mm.
When you put, I love this. It's what I love these two words that she's using. I learned this from Gloria Steinem. I love these two words she's using, outrage. And Gloria always said, do something every day that's outrageous.
Yes,
That's what she
yes.
said every day. Can you do something every day? People are probably listening. Who's Gloria Steinem? You can always Google it.
Not our audience. We know who Gloria
But
Steinem
she
is.
says, do something outrageous. But when you put those two O's together, O plus O, outraged and optimism,
Mm,
the end game you get is an absolute action impossibility. You blow the doors off of probability, meaning you said, I probably won't get that. I probably won't own a network. Are you kidding? I never thought in a million years that I would own a radio and a media network. Are you kidding? Never thought about it. But
so
outrage and optimism together doesn't let you think about it. It just lets you bring people together on a common cause to change the world and create a better world, one better than it was when I came in. That's it. That's how simple it is for us.
So simple. We are going to continue this conversation after our break, and I'm going to talk about Confidence 2020. See you on the other side. Welcome back, everyone. This is a hot one today. Discovering You Again Radio with Susan Axelrod and with Dr. Pat Basili. We are talking about Melinda Gates. $1 billion over 10 years. She has the resources. She made the commitment to invest in the topic of gender equality. Today, we have talked about power and influence. We have talked about how we get women to say, yes, I can, and yes, I will. And Dr. Pat and I were just talking during the break, and we were agreeing we want people to do anything about anything that matters. There's a lot to do, and we encourage you to find it within yourself to do what you can. So, Dr. Pat, I want to tell you about an initiative that I am starting myself because I am so riled up about this. You used the words enraged. You talked about Melinda Gates.
Outraged.
Outrage. That's right. Outrage
Outraged
and
and optimistic. Yeah.
optimism.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it is in my outrage and my optimism that I am creating something called Confidence 2020. In my work over these last several years, I have learned without a doubt that it is the seeds of personal self doubt that keep people from real, true self actualization. Where do these seeds come from? From a myriad of places. One of them is from when we were younger. Things people might have said or done, the experiences we had, they get stuffed down in us and they begin to tear away at your, self confidence. There's other things along the way. Dr. Pat just mentioned them about how you're treated in your business life. There's other things along the way about how we compare ourselves or how society compares us to each other. There are so many ways, so many reasons that we lack self confidence. I do believe that the idea of self confidence is underlying people's ability. Now, we learned from Dr. Pat that 15 years ago, somehow she had to crust bust herself and break through any doubts to be able to do something which she had never thought about and never per se dreamed of. And that was
And I
create
didn't know how to do it. I had
and
didn't have a clue.
didn't have a clue. And here we are today, 15 years later. Why? Because step by step, maybe it sounds like moment by moment, she just took those little baby steps forward, learning what she needed to do, accessing resources, maybe even asking for help
Oh
and
yeah.
saying yes to receiving help from others. So, what I am going to do is launch an initiative. I'm offering a free webinar on January 20th, 2020. Ooh, I almost said 2019, Dr. Pat. It's hard to even say those words.
2020?
2020, it's
2020.
2020. And
Big year. Big year
a
2020.
big year. And that is why I am doing this. I'm going to have my free webinar. It'll be 7 p.m. Eastern. The information will be posted all over the place. You got time to register, but I will make sure that you get the information. But if you are sitting there listening to us today and asking yourself, how is it that I can do something meaningful? I don't have the confidence to do that, or I could use a little support, then I'm going to be sharing Confidence 2020 with you. I'm going to have programs that go over the course of the whole year. I am committing to this, Dr. Pat. I'm committing to multiple different types of programs to support multiple different types of needs. Not too much, just enough, because I personally am taking responsibility for creating the army that I think Melinda Gates needs. What do you think about that, Dr. Pat?
No, I'm totally right there with you because Jessica and I got on the plane when we came back from LA, and humbling experience is an understatement. And I
Mm,
turned to Jessica and I said, Jessica, I feel different. I said, do you feel different? And
wow.
she says, yeah, I feel different. I said, but what's the feeling? Can you put your finger on it? Because both of us were on the plane. She says, I feel inspired. I said, yes, I do too. And then she pulled out her pad and we laid out a course of action that people are going to hear a lot more about and what
Woo!
we're about to create. And we're not going to wait, right? Because we're out of the gate. Thank you, Melinda Gates, right?
Mm,
This is the thing. We have to say, yes, this is the vision, but we have to do something. And that's what you're doing, Susan. You know,
that's
you're doing something.
that's exactly right. I love it. Quote, I feel inspired, end quote. Quote, we are not going to wait. Dr. Pat,
Right.
I can't tell you how much I hear from women in midlife about how much they don't want to wait any longer. That's why I'm talking about this, that
Yeah.
I believe that the army is made up of women who have the time. Honestly, when I was 32, 33, 37, 39, 40, 42, I didn't have time. I was building a family and a career and supporting, all kinds of other things. Now I have found over these years that my daughters have been gone from the house. I have more time. People say to me, "You're so busy." I say, "No, I'm not. I'm active. I'm activated." And so, yes, I too feel inspired. And I too am not waiting. Do I have all the pieces in place for my Confidence 2020 platform?
No,
No.
you don't need them. You don't need them. They're going to come to you. They're going to come to you. You don't
That
need them. They're going to come to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pat. I've been inspired, since I've been working with you on this radio show and listening carefully to what you have shared about how you have done this. And there's one more thing. When I say I'm building a Confidence 2020 platform, I'm not building a new radio network. I don't have to. I'm already on Transformation
Right.
Talk Radio Network. I'm using the tools that I myself have accessed and growing out further in that way. And I just can't say enough how any person listening can also breathe, understand what their divine attributes are, what their divine gifts are, and use that organic gift to really grow and grow out, Dr. Pat.
Yeah. I love what you're doing and I love the invitation because it's okay for us to not know everything. I mean, I still don't know what I don't know about what we're building,
Mm,
right? But I have a great team of people. And I want to say this: I get to show up, whether it's at an event or on air with you, because I am surrounded by genius, harmonious energy.
mm,
I mean, we've got Linda who has supported me beyond anybody as a best friend and a producer. I wouldn't be here without her, or Jessica for that matter.
mm,
And then we have Jessica who started as an intern and soaked up and learned everything,
mm.
everything, and was so shy. I remember one Heather who was here turned to me one day and said, "Does she talk?" And now she's talking,
Oh,
right?
that's great.
But this is it. The other part of it is we have a responsibility, Susan. I want to say this is a lesson I'm learning now. One of the things that we have a responsibility is that if an opportunity is put in front of us, like you're doing, we have to show up, study, learn, and excel. There is absolutely no margin for complacency and mediocrity. Just isn't. So if you're given an opportunity on a job, and I'm talking to everybody out there, on a job, on an internship, so whatever it is, and you're given an opportunity to learn and you don't learn, and I'm talking mostly to women now,
15 seconds, Dr. Pat.
and you don't learn, what's going to happen, Susan?
Epic fail. And that's not where we are. Dr.
That's
Pat,
right.
I want to say thank you so much. We could go on forever talking about this. People can find me on Facebook, on my personal Facebook page, and you can find Dr. Pat always every day on Transformation Talk Radio Network. Dr. Pat, thank you. Thank you for this motivation and inspiration. I have been writing my own notes that, listening to you from our conversation today. So I'm excited to continue. We'll be talking more about Confidence 2020. And honestly,
I
I
like
can't
it.
wait to hear more about what it is that you're doing.
Honestly, I love what you're doing. I can't
Thank you.
wait to sign up. Confidence 2020. I need it sometimes.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Pat.
you, Susan.
We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
You've been listening to Discovering You Again Radio with Susan Axelrod on Transformation Talk Radio. Thank you for tuning in as Susan Axelrod helps answer that burning middle-aged question, what now? Get ready to dive in and be radiant in your skin. Connect to a dialogue of fun, encouragement, and new ways to tackle your future. For more about Susan, go to www.whatwillyourlegacybe.com.